Hi, I'm Shawn Mosh, and I am so happy to be here with you designing this project for 12 by 12 cardstock. We're going to make a fun summery birthday card with an ice cream treat on the front. I actually have an SVG file that I'm going to use. So we're going to click on the upload button, and then we're going to browse to where we've downloaded and saved our SVG file. And then we'll upload it. You can see the file comes in all ready to cut. And I actually give you multiple different ice cream treats to choose from for your project. Now we can click that green button in the lower right corner and you can see the file is right there. Let's click on it and add it to our canvas. You can see that one of the benefits of using an SVG file, everything comes in ready to cut and layered. I am going to ungroup them because I'm not going to use them all. But now I have to decide which one I want to use. So I am just selecting and deleting the ones that I'm not going to use for this project. You can actually mix and match some of these different looks if you want. Now I'm going to select this entire ice cream treat and go to my top layer, and I am going to make the height 4 inches. I only have to adjust the height because I do have that little padlock locked, which means Cricut Design Space will keep the image proportional. Now it's time to design our card. I'm going to use a shape and just start with a square. I can now unlock this square and I want to make it 5.5 inches in height and 8.5 inches wide. I'm going to make this have a light peachy color. This is going to be my main card base. I'm going to go to my shapes and grab a score line. Since this is 5.5 inches in height, I want to make this 5.5 inches also. Now I can take both of those and I don't even have to center it on here. Watch this. If I select both of these and say align center, it perfectly aligns it. Now I want to make sure I click this little paper clip, which is the attach tool, and that is going to hold that placement in position so that score line will always be in exactly right spot. Now I want to have some border elements here. So I'm going to go back to my shapes, grab another square, and this one I'm going to unlock and make it 5.5 by 4.25, which is exactly half of the size of the card. Now I'm going to show you a fun little trick. I'm going to use the offset tool, but move it to the inside. You can either do this by putting a negative number in the little number box or sliding that little dial to the left. And this creates an inset, which is the opposite of an offset. And I'm going to use the sharp corner and just click apply. So this piece is what I'm actually going to use. I just used the other square for design purposes, so I can get rid of that. This one, I'm going to make this a dark orange. And then I'm going to put one more offset in here. And this is going to be some white patterned paper, but for design purposes, I'll just leave it plain white. Now I want to make the main body of this ice cream bar to be the same color as the card. So I'm going to use the color sync and I'm just going to drag this to be the same color as the card. Now I have to decide what color I want that drip to be. I'm going to use a paper that's very close in color to this first offset. So I'm going to go under my color sync and just move this to be on the same one as the offset. And then I can take this whole grouping and say arrange and bring to the front. And now I can determine how big I want the entire thing to be. The stick of this ice cream treat, I'm going to actually do out of a wood grain paper. Now I'm ready to click Make It and start creating. I love that Cricut Design Space will show me each mat so that I know exactly what I'm cutting. So I'm going to go up here, turn on my Cricut, and start cutting. Line up your Cricut mat so it's under the little guides, and then press the double arrow to load it. Then the C button will start to blink. Pressing that C button is what's going to start the Cricut to do the cutting. I decided to go with this fun patterned paper instead of the solid white rectangle like I had put in Cricut Design Space, and that is totally fine. You can adjust things on the fly like that. You can always look back in Cricut Design Space to look at the map preview to see the color order that the Cricut wants you to load things in. Next, we're going to cut the wood grain paper and make sure you look at which direction the grain is running. I like to tape it down with some painter's tape. In Cricut Design Space, I want you to go to your custom settings and you're going to choose the natural wood veneer. We'll see that it says we need our deep cut blade for this. So the first thing we're going to want to do is switch out our blade. Also, because I've put painter's tape around the edge of this wood grain cardstock, I want to move that where that stick is on the mat just a little bit so I clear the places where the painter's tape is. If you've never changed out what type of blade you're using, it's really easy to do. You just flip that little gray tab open, and this is my deep cut blade. I'll just drop that in there and close it back up. Now, if you have a machine like me, you're going to have to turn the dial over here to custom settings in order to get to that wood veneer setting. So now we can load our mat by pressing the double arrow. And then when the C button starts to blink, we'll press that, and that begins the cutting. Because I have this on the wood veneer setting, that is automatically going to do a multi-cut, which means it's going to do the exact same cut right over the top of the last cut. This helps so that you get a cleaner cut, and you can see this little stick kind of popped out before it was even done cutting. Here's a little tip. Make sure to switch back to your regular blade and put your deep cut blade away. I sometimes forget this. Here's another little space saving tip. Since I am going to cut both of these pieces out of the same color, and I'm going to be layering another piece right over the top of this, I could actually cut the drips out of the inside of this rectangle because it doesn't matter that there's going to be a drip shaped hole in the middle here because I'm going to cover that up with another piece of paper. So now I'm saving space. So you can literally just move that around wherever you want it. So now we will load the bright orange color cardstock and press that C button to start the cutting. Now, even though the Cricut has different settings for cardstock, I do like to play around with my settings because every brand of cardstock is slightly different. And depending on how used your blade is, you might need a different cut setting. So I do spend some time testing different cut settings before I start making projects, especially if I'm using a new brand of cardstock. Here's another tip. Make sure you flip your cutting mat over and kind of bend it and peel the cardstock away from it. This helps so it doesn't curl up. The last piece is the base piece. We are going to load that into our cutting mat, and the first thing the Cricut's going to want to do is score it. So we'll take out our blade and put our scoring tool in. Then when we press the C button, it's going to score that center line for the fold of the card. Once that is done, the Cricut's going to pause, and that allows me to take out the scoring stylus and then place the blade in. Then the C is blinking, so I'll press that, and it cuts the card. Once everything is cut, it's time for the fun part of putting this card together. I love it when I can come up with an idea and then turn it into a reality like this card. So you can see I have the base and I already folded it on the score line. Now we're going to just take these pieces and start to assemble our card. You can see this patterned piece just lines up perfectly over the top of the orange. And you can see how it's going to hide and cover up that little drippy part that we cut out of the center. I placed some double-sided sticky tape on the back of this pattern paper to just adhere that to the orange. Now we can start to assemble our ice cream treat. I put some glue on the back of that bright orange drip piece. I like to use a larger piece like that peachy toned cardstock. That's one solid piece. And this really helps for layering. When you have one element or color in the design that's a solid piece, and then you're just layering the other colors over the top. It makes it so much easier to create your designs. And I just love this beautiful wood grain paper. It's perfect for the stick of this ice cream treat. And because that was one piece, I can flip that over and just add adhesive to that, attach it to my card front. The last thing there is left to do is to attach that card front to the base of the card. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I can't wait to see what you design and create with the cardstock from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop.